Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Global Legal Tech Talks, delivered in partnership with Newix. I'm Anissa Tenner, I'm the Head of Events at NetLaw Media, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to today's session, Beyond the Billable Hour, AI and the Future of Legal Services. AI is forcing the legal sector to confront an uncomfortable question. If technology can deliver legal work faster and more efficiently, is the billable hour still fit for purpose? This session will examine whether the billable hour can be meaningfully adapted for an AI-enabled legal economy, or whether the profession is approaching a more profound commercial and structural realignment. Before I move on to introduce our chair, as a reminder, this is a live session and we encourage your participation. Please share your questions via the Q&A chat function, and we'll aim to address as many as possible, although I know we've got a lot to cover in an hour. So I'm delighted to introduce our chair for today, Sean Jardine. Sean is the CEO at Big Yellow Penguin. Sean is a solicitor and former law firm CEO of a top 250 law firm. He has an insight into what makes law firms tick. Sean founded Big Yellow Penguin in 2021 with the aim of encouraging and helping lawyers and law firms to move on from the 20th century and adopt practices, including value-based pricing, which will make their futures more secure, both financially and operationally, and enjoy practicing their craft again. Sean is the author of Ditch the Billable Hour, Implementing Value-Based Pricing in a Law Firm, which was published in January 2024. So please, can you all join me in welcoming Sean Jardine? Sean, over to you.
Thank you very much, Anissa, and hello, everybody, and thank you very much for that kind introduction. Just so that you know where I might be coming from on this, I don't want it to be a spoiler or anything like that, but I have written a book called Ditch the Billable Hour, so you might actually get a flavour of where I'm coming from. And today I managed to actually agree something with my publisher where a third book has actually been signed off and is going to be available at the end of July, and it's called Stop the Clock. So I hope there's nobody out there thinking, well, you know, I wonder what Sean's view is on this. Now, before I ask the panel to introduce themselves, I'd just like to give you my take on as far as AI is concerned and what it's done. It has just shone a light on the billable hour. And it's something that, you know, back in 2012, Lord Neuberger, who was the master of the rolls, was speaking at a conference of law cost draftsmen, saying that the billable hour actually is something that penalizes efficient law firms because the slowest horse wins the race. And that can't ever have been, you know, a good way to run a business. If all of a sudden the slowest horse actually earns more money, that can't be, that's not good for, certainly not good for clients. I'm delighted that we've got delegates joining us from, well, we've got speakers joining us from Canada and based in Germany. But also we've got delegates joining us from the UAE, the US, Brazil, Singapore, Austria, Gibraltar, Belgium, Hong Kong, Hungary, Malta, Ireland, Netherlands, Norway, and Zimbabwe. And what does that tell us? This is a global problem about legal and the billable hour. And so it's something that I know affects lawyers all over the world. Are we going to solve all of these problems in the next hour? Absolutely not. But I do hope that we can actually provoke a few thoughts, create some conversations, and perhaps get you to go away thinking, all right, there's something that we should do. And one of the questions that I'm going to ask the panelists at the end of this session is, what is something that you should take away and do in the next 90 days or so? Right. So without further ado, I would like to ask the panel to introduce themselves, tell us who they are, what they do. And I'll start with you, Nina, but I will ask another question of you, if I may. And I'd like you to explain to me what an IHK certified AI manager is, because I'm intrigued to know more.
First of all, thank you so much for having me here. I'm very excited to be part of this extremely incredible group. IHK stands for Industrie- und Handelskammer, which means in German, the Chamber of Commerce. And in Germany, everything needs to be certified, as you can imagine. And so it certifies me as an AI manager and product management and project management. So
excellent.
Different sorts of AI, how to use them, how to utilize them, when to apply at all, where to consult with clients, how to prompt, for example, and that AI goes beyond just ChatGPT.
Brilliant. And do you want to just tell us a little bit about Nuix, who are you representing?
Sure. I just recently started or continued my journey with Nuix. I've been in the legal industry, in the legal technology industry for the past 20 years. I worked myself backwards into that field from the EDRM cycle as a document reviewer at a time where paper documents were reviewed. Now I'm completely on the other side, at the software side, helping clients who are law firms, individuals, corporations, governments, how to utilize the software, how to utilize AI properly, and look at the outcome and where their goal is and how they can approach that and how they can achieve that point.
Great stuff. I did have a look at the Nuix website whilst preparing for this webinar, and I think the most interesting case study, not to say they weren't all of the case studies were not necessarily interesting, but the most interesting to me was the Panama Papers, that actually Nuix were involved in actually collating those. So there we are. You might want to read that little case study later on once this webinar is finished. Lovely. Thank you, Nina. Duncan,
Sure.
do you want to tell people who you are, where you're from?
Excellent. Duncan Fraser. I am a lawyer. I'm based in Ottawa, Canada, and I run a very specialized law firm that deals exclusively with electronic evidence in litigation, risk, and compliance. So I've been practicing law for 30 years. I spent the first 20 years as a litigator for the Federal Department of Justice, and was general counsel in the litigation branch in Ottawa when I left in 2015. I had spent a large part of my career being very interested in how technology could address some of the obstacles to efficiency and in the public sector, was made responsible for the evidence management across the country. That's when I first met Nuix, because it is is being used across the federal government for evidence management. And in 2015, I had pushed the ball a long way. It's hard to be very, very innovative in the public sector, and I set up this firm to serve business to business. Primarily, we work for law firms and in-house legal departments. So, and on the AI and billable hour, I can tell you the billable hour we're talking about, I billed my time in the Federal Department of Justice in 6-minute increments for my career. And now I don't. We're doing things a bit differently. We're very, very interested in AI. We review documents, we prepare evidence for litigation teams. And last year, we started building our own AI integrations directly into evidence management platforms. So I'm hiring developers as opposed to lawyers right now.
Okay. And finally, Stuart Vandermark.
Hello, thank you. Good to see everybody. Thank you for welcoming me, Sean, and hello to the panel. Yeah, I'm Stuart, so I'm a managing partner of a law firm in the East Midlands across Nottingham, Leicester and Derby. We do SME, private client work. Like Duncan, like you, Sean, I was a litigator, commercial litigator. In my case, for much of my career, in the last 8-9 years, I've been in a management role, and we're a law firm that's is built on and driven by the billable hour. So we are wrestling with these issues, as I'm sure many of those watching and listening in are, and beginning to grapple with what some of the answers might be. So it's a very timely and interesting topic. The other thing I should just add is we're part of a private equity-backed group, which means that we're probably more advanced on our journey than we would have been in our independent days. So we're part of the Lawfront Group, which has got law firms across the UK.
And should the Lawfront Group, they combine, I know that they've probably got, is it 10 firms within the group now or something like that? The combined turnover is roughly what these days?
150, 60 million, that sort of order, but growing rapidly, yeah.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, look, that's the panel, everybody, and that's who you're going to be hearing from today. What I would like to do is do a quick poll, if I may. And so Anissa hopefully will be able to, behind the scenes, press the magic buttons, and there they are. And you will see that we're asking you a question, and we would like to know, which pricing model is the predominantly being used in your firm at the moment? Are you predominantly the billable hour? Are you a bit of fixed fee based pricing, fixed prices, a strategic mix of both? Or are you actively moving away from traditional models, or are you doing something else entirely? So if you'd like to click your buttons on one of those poll questions, Stuart and I, Nina, Duncan and I will chat amongst ourselves for 30 seconds or something like that. It'd be interesting to see how you're voting. Are we in a position to disclose the votes? It
Yes.
sounds like as though I'm doing Eurovision Song Contest. Okay, here we have it then. Predominantly billable hour, 44%. Fixed fee and fixed fee based pricing at 8%. A bit of both. Yep. Small percentage of we're actively moving away, and something for others. That's probably what I would expect, if I'm honest. When when I survey clients that I work with and things like that, one of the questions I usually ask is, which of these questions is closer to the truth? We've got a pricing policy that is consistently applied, and that usually comes out at about 40%. And the other question is, do you leave it to your staff to make it up as you go along and use their best endeavors on pricing? And that usually comes out at 60%. So we've got 40%, 44% doing billable hour, and then 45% doing a strategic mix of both. Can I just go to the panel? Is there anything that surprises you there that is particularly earth-shattering, or roughly what we're expecting?
Perhaps less seeking to actively move away than I might have thought. Maybe that's something where the AI journey's got to, but
yeah. And I think that some people might actually be thinking, well, we're moving away from the billable hour because we're going to the fixed fees or something like that. But okay, well that's interesting. Thank you very much, everybody. If I could just come to the panel again, I'll start with you, Nina. Nina, what's your take on the billable hour, and what's the prognosis for the future? If it was a patient of yours, what would you be saying is going to happen?
I would urge them to quickly learn everything they can about AI, just to be clear. I wouldn't necessarily say, and a lot of people, including myself at the beginning, long before AI was even a word, like at the times where we were still actually reviewing paper documents, as mentioned before, where people were asking me, is our computers going to replace us? Is AI going to replace us? I will always say no. AI is not there to replace us as humans. We are still there. It's just a different method of looking at things. All the repetitive work will be able to be done through AI tools, where the human is actually applied as a human. Your skills are used. You're not doing mundane stuff anymore. Again, going back to my document review days, I recall once everything was uploaded into the systems, we had to manually redact Excel spreadsheets. And if anyone on this panel or in the audience has ever done that, they know how mind-numbing that experience is. You're sitting there, sometimes guessworking, because the Excel spreadsheet, as you can imagine, is not going to be in a native format. It will be PDF, so you're sitting there black marking everything. So do tell me you have a tool that can take that away. The error of margin is going to be much lower, and I can utilize the lawyers who used to do this work to actually do some lawyering instead of mind-numbing exercises. So that's my take for the next 90 days, I would say, or for the future. I would say train your junior lawyers to actually be able to work with AI, give them as much knowledge as possible.
Okay. Duncan, what do you think is going to happen to the billable hour? Do you think it's going to go away completely, or do you think that it's going to have its place in some law firms? Does it have a place in your law firm?
It does have a place in the work that we do. It has a place because I have to price our work. And if I'm pricing our work, I have to know what my cost per hour or per unit is. So it may not be how we bill, but I'm going to compare it to what the industry standards are. If I'm competing against another law firm for work or another service provider for work, I am going to have to be able to estimate what this work would cost in a traditional model. We're talking about billable hours, but I'm a business person and we have to make a profit in order to continue. We can't be donating our time at a loss. So generally, we're looking to reduce our costs, increase our margins, increase our sales. So I have to be competitive. I have to understand it. And I think the bigger question in this discussion is what's the impact on our profitability or our marketability if we're ditching the billable hour as the model. I think the billable hour makes us vulnerable to the challenge that the value isn't there for the hour, as opposed to it's a poor way of generating profit. So do I think it will go away? I think it's going to stay there as a baseline comparator. I think there are lots of other ways to bill. But a very small firm has limited options. You can't afford to risk a fixed price and lose.
And when you think about you mentioned that your client base is in the main law firms, and are they wanting a billable hour rate for you, or are they wanting a fixed price for doing this particular exercise that you may be doing?
The worst thing you can do is give a law firm your dockets and have them look at them and come back and ask you questions. It's better to provide them with value. But they do think about it that way. If they're billing per hour, they'd like to know who was working, what their hourly rates were, whether their hourly rates are negotiable, whether you've put the right person on. So we have, for projects where we do billable, we don't have many tiers of hourly rates. We keep it very, very streamlined, effectively two rates for two types of services, and we try and bill on those, and then we provide. We have other services that we build flat rates for within them.
Okay. And Stuart, what's going on in your world? You're a CEO of a large law firm. You've got what are the current barriers that you might be facing with the billable hour and use of AI in your organisation?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I like others, I was a litigator for a long, long time, and chargeable time. You become managing partner because you were a good fee earner. So, and I was a good fee earner, and I could fill the timesheet. I was very adept at it, and it was very deeply ingrained in me. I read your book, Sean. That was when I first came across you. It's a billable hour. And it made a lot of intellectual. I could understand your points. There's lots of pictures and things which help. So I could understand the points. When I first read it a few years ago, it was a conceptual challenge because it was so confronting, everything I'd sort of been doing for 20, 30 years. And we've tried to run Nelson's. We've tried to drive the profitability and performance by focusing in on some of those traditional inputs, like, are we getting the productivity and the time on the timesheets? So much of our management metrics are built around that, as in many law firms. So you've got all these barriers where people have got these deeply ingrained habits. We're used to and familiar with it. We've not really had to think about how we price in other ways. I think picking up Duncan's point, I think just reflecting on my journey with this, the whole AI experience does make you think a lot more carefully about what are we really selling? What are people really buying? And how do we price that? And what's the value in that? And what alternative models have we got? But like a lot of law firms, a lot of our work is hourly rate, but we've begun to monitor over the last year or so more carefully. And actually about 60% of our work is on a fixed fee already. So all that transactional, conveyancing, real estate, corporate, most of that work is already done on some form of fixed fee. So it's kind of a 50-50 mix, but a lot of that big work is hourly rate. And you've got external levers that make it hard to move forward as well. So you've got court rules that require, us to present a bill of time in a certain way, which it's going to be interesting to see how the court deals with that as AI comes in. There's already started to be, I know, decisions and coming out of cost assessment hearings and that sort of thing about what do the courts expect from law firms. So there's lots of barriers. There's lots of things that hold us back from changing. And without a doubt, that's I know you're a big believer in this, Sean, but so much of this is about changing people's behaviours, and how do we do that? And for something that's been deeply ingrained for hundreds of years in our sector, that's not going to be easy or quick.
Yeah. Bless you. Thank you very much for holding up my book. I'm going to hold up another book, and it's not mine, and it is this one, ladies and gentlemen, and it's called Our Iceberg is Melting, and it's a book by John Cotter from the Harvard Business School. And if you've been involved in any change management project at all, the chances are you would have come across John Cotter. And he wrote this fable called Our Iceberg is Melting. It's a story about a group of penguins who've got to find a new way of working. And if they don't, the iceberg that they're on is going to explode. The colony is going to die. And that is actually why I am a penguin-obsessed former lawyer. But it's a very good book about implementing change. I do encourage you to read it. You can buy it for £10 on Amazon or something like that. And it has 8 steps to implementing a change management project. And it's a perfect book for lawyers because you can read it in an hour and a quarter. It's got pictures of penguins in it. One of them holds a briefcase, so you can immediately identify with that penguin friend. And it has a penguin called Alice, and she's one of the penguins who really gets stuff done. There's an enthusiastic penguin called Buddy, and he's very anxious to help and get things done. There's a penguin called No. I say, oh, no. That'll never work around here. So there will be people in your organization that you can readily identify. And I think that, implementing, any tech project that you're going through is a change management project. Moving away from the billable hour to value-based pricing is a change management project. And I think that's something that perhaps isn't always grasped, the fact that it is really something that has to be planned properly, scoped, get people on board, proving concepts, etc., so that you can take people with you on the journey. And I think for many in the legal sector, this is going to be a journey that some people don't even want to take. You might get pushback on this where they're thinking, no, I don't want to do this. I remember when ChatGPT first came out, there are a number of law firms, some in America, that were just saying, we will never use AI. Our unique selling point is we will never use AI at all. I suspect their position might have changed since then. I don't know. But, okay. What I would like to do is ask Anissa if we could put the next poll question up again. And we'll ask you to have a look at this and answer this poll question. And this is really looking at the efficiency gap, okay? And so, look, if AI can complete a task in 10 minutes that previously took us 10 hours, should the client pay less? Is it a yes? Is it a no? Is it well, it depends on the outcome. It depends on the type of matter it is, or is it something else? So we're down from 10 hours to 10 minutes. Should the client pay less? Press those buttons on your mouse. Let's have a look at what you can come up with. Okay, so we've got 27% saying yes. No, the no's are 4%. Depends on the outcome. Yeah, 41%, depending on the matter. What do we think of that panel? Is there anything there that surprises us in terms of those as answers? Sure, what do you think?
Well, it's interesting. I mean, it reflects a range of different views, and I suspect I'd get similar range within Nelson's. And I think it comes back to reflecting. I think for me, it comes back to that fundamental question. We're so ingrained that we're selling time. The notion that therefore we spend less time, we must get less feels inevitable. Yeah. The worry I have is as all my lawyers start incrementally doing, a little bit less manually and use a bit more of the tech, I've got to preserve fee incomes and turnover and profitability, or I can't keep paying the salaries they all want. So we've got to sort of tread our way through it. But this gets to the heart of the issue, doesn't it, really? And why I suppose we're here discussing it today.
Yeah. Nina, is there anything there that surprises you?
It doesn't really surprise me, but I would have just left it at the it depends. Because while I agree we are in a business world, all the lawyers and the law firms need to make an income. Duncan mentioned that. You have to look at the business side of things. But on the other side, the client shouldn't be paying if something mind-numbing or even like a contract writing used to take me 10 hours and now I can work on it in 2 hours. The client shouldn't pay the additional 8 hours. That's a given. But how about me using the AI? How about implementing my experience? How about buying those tools? Those are all return on the investment. And I think certain aspects of it should be rolled back onto the client because I cannot say, all right, I made these investments, I did X, I learned this, I did Y, but the client is not going to pay. They're just paying for my 2 hours. That's not going to work.
Yeah. And Duncan, what about you? Because what you mentioned you're investing in AI. If you're investing in AI and doing things quicker, are you going to be worse off at the end of the year?
I don't think so. And I think the question itself is where I'll start. Should the client pay less? No, the client shall pay for fewer hours, certainly, but it may not be less. So I don't think we can bill them for 10 hours. If we spend 10, I think that's unethical. 10 minutes. So I'll start there. But should they pay less? It depends. I've got infrastructure. I've got developers. I've got insurance. I've got expertise. My AI team will be making more than junior lawyers who might have been doing that work. So I think it really is, I would be in the other category saying, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be paying net less. I think it should be. That's what AI should be doing. When they start charging us the true cost of computing, it might actually be a wash. But for now, with the cost that we have for our GPUs and it would cost. The bill would be lower. Would be the answer.
It's interesting. I read it was the CEO of a large case management company that was just talking about. Actually, if you're using AI and we're doing it for you quicker, we're doing it for you better, you're getting a better service from us because we can now spend more time not on the automated work. That's what the AI is doing, but the work that requires acumen and our knowledge and our know-how. You're getting more of that time. So actually, you should pay more. Where you actually think, well, because you're getting so much better service from your lawyers. Now, I think all of this is going to become a big communication exercise in terms of the way that lawyers actually talk about AI with their clients, what they're doing, how they're doing it. And there are a number of studies that I've seen. One of the most recent one was KPMG in-house counsel study, where there was a lot of criticism from businesses, in-house counsel teams who say, we're not being told what's going on. Really, we don't know what our panel lawyers are doing. And there was becoming almost a trust issue. And before we get into that, I can tell you, I was in Australia recently, and I was contacted by someone at the global law firm who was saying, we're just not quite sure. We've got AI, we've got loads of it. We're not quite sure how to get our return on our investment. We're not quite sure what we're doing here. And in a couple of weeks ago, I was at Bristol LegalTech, and there was a managing partners forum. And there was managing partners of people from tech, of very big firms. And there was a managing partner, a lady from a firm with about 110 in total in headcount. And she was very upfront. She said, I am here representing the rabbit in the headlights brigade. We don't really know what we're doing at the moment. And in fact, we had a partners meeting the other night where we had our head of IT in. And one of my partners said, it would be great if AI could do X, Y, Z for us. And the head of IT said, no, Word can do that already. And another partner said, oh, it would be great if AI could do ABC and the head of IT said, no, our case management system does that already. And I think so you have a situation almost at opposite ends of the spectrum where you've got people who are very sophisticated IT implementation teams, but maybe the partner's not quite understanding how they should be charging and communicating with clients. And then you've got the other end of the spectrum, people thinking that AI is something else, and it's not. It might be using your own tools that you've got already if you know how to use them. Really, I just wondered what, in terms of taking people with you on this journey, this AI journey, when you've got people who may be rabbits in headlights and you've got partners that might be sophisticated, what does good look like? Nina, can I come to you? You know, you have a qualification about this project management. What does good look like when you take people on this journey?
You know, that's a very good question. I recall 7 years ago when I moved back to Germany, I was standing in front of that decision. I had to get people online with me. And it wasn't, again, this present AI hype. It was still at the very beginning. I think in any sort of change management, and as you mentioned correctly, this is a change management. You have to look at the implementation of things that goes easily, but getting people on board and giving people, most of all, time to adjust their behavior, adapt their behavior, to understand it, giving them life examples of what the application of AI tools, whether it's in the legal technology area or in the software area, can actually do for them. I'm going to advertise a little bit now for NewX. Don't tell anyone I said that. But for example, we have in our Discover tool, in our review tool, we have AI applications. And this morning, I actually had a call with a client who really just wanted that AI tool. A couple of years ago, this wouldn't have happened. People in Germany, even if I mentioned e-discovery to them, document review to them back then, they kept saying, why should I pay somebody else to do the work for me? Oh, the junior lawyers are going to do that. Meanwhile, they are approaching us, asking for those kind of tools, asking for the automation tool, asking for automatic redaction tools. Remember that mind-numbing exercise of the Excel spreadsheets. So people are slowly but surely, and I think one of the aspects is keeping that passion alive, if you understand how much it can help the industry, and then slowly but surely giving people the time to accept that this is the new reality.
Mm-hmm. Sure. How are you planning on charging for, your AI dividend, if at all? I did speak to one in-house counsel who said that, and I said that I have read that some AI companies are talking about putting a line item on a bill. That's what they recommend, and we'll start charging you for the tokens, etc. And this particular guy, in-house counsel, very well known in the sector, said, if somebody tries that with me, there will be trouble. I'm not going to have the 21st century equivalent of postage and photocopying coming up as a line item on bills. But what have you got as far as down the lane as thinking about what you're doing, or is that still work in progress?
Well, for everybody hoping for an answer, you can all switch off now. Yes, there's becoming an urgent imperative, I think, because the AI has been rolled out. People are starting to use the AI. It's making, a lot of the fee earners would say, a lot of the solicitors would say, it's making marginal difference around the edges. But at the moment, it's not transforming everything. But as you go further up the management chain to my level, then up to the law firm level, you can see the ability for lots of small changes to start to add up quite quickly, and then more radical changes in the work processes to come in the years to come. So we've got a law firm conference. You were there, I think, last year, weren't you, Sean, as a guest speaker, speaking about pricing. Pricing's making the main stage this year. So I've got, and this is one of the imperatives, is we've got to kind of quickly work out how we deal with it, and then it goes to your question, Nina. How do we take everybody on the ground, who are the people really selling, with us, and open up the space for them to have the creativity and the courage to try new things, to feel they can succeed and feel they can fail. But yeah, the conversation's very much around. My personal take has always been, since reading your book, and which makes a compelling argument, Sean, and working with you a little bit and thinking about it. Clearly, if you can work in a fixed fee way and you can hold your fee, productivity gains go to profitability, and you can flex how much of that you give and share back to the client against how much volume you want to drive through. And that's always struck me as a simple win-win. But there are active debates around whether there are people that will say internally we should think about a technology charge, going back to the postage and so on that we used to have in years gone by, photocopying charges. We should have a tech charge. That's an easy way on a spreadsheet for the accountants to see we've put that investment in there and we can see it coming back here. Other discussions are around moving to a more menu-based sort of pricing model. So can you create a situation where, to take an example, if AI, I used to love coming in the day I was going to do my chronology on a big bit of litigation. Loved it. It was a day's work. You could get your head into all the documents. You order your case. AI can do that in minutes. And now you've still got to put some human intervention into that, but it massively reduces the time. Do you start to look at individual tasks and start saying, well, we'll have like a menu of charges. So if we're going to do a chronology for a client, we'll charge a fixed fee of Y. I'm probably a bit instinctively with you, Sean. I would rather, if we can agree a price with the client that they think represents value and we can broadly hold that, that seems to me a simpler way forward than getting locked into lots of other ways of charging. But those are the debates that we're having. And there's obviously a pressure to try and come up with answers sooner rather than later, rather than just see hours slowly erode as AI comes in with no solution. So we're very much, it's been talked about. We know we've got to work it out. And the encouragement to everybody on the floor is very much step out and try and experiment and have a go. Some find that difficult. But for those that are willing to, go and have a go. And the chief COO at Lawfront, one of the things he said to me was, I want people to try. And some of the things we try will be disasters. But that's okay. Let's try. We've got to try. Let's work out what the market will accept and work out how we find our way through it. So we're at the chicken and egg stage. We're playing with it. We know it's an issue. We've started to think a lot about it. We've done a lot of work at Nelson's in the last year on it, but we're still working it through.
Yeah. Duncan, do you think we're going to end up with tokens as line items on invoices to clients? A tech charge?
We currently do, yes. It's because we're providing access both to the technology and the services around it. AI is expensive. It's unfortunate. This happened with Microsoft 365. The cloud is free, right? You can store your terabyte of information for next to nothing per month if you're just one person. And the AI, ChatGPT, and these very cheap programs make people think that it's inexpensive. It's not. It's quite expensive. It's quite expensive to develop the guardrails in your own in your own instruction set. It's expensive to provide the security layer around it. It's expensive to build a front end for your industry, and it's expensive to support it because the infrastructure and the dependencies, the application dependencies are changing all the time. So it isn't ChatGPT free. So it does cost money. We provide people with direct access to our evidence-based AI, and that is token-based. Effectively, it costs, and it's very predictable. It costs this much, per prompt per document, and it is that lesson for us in the self-help AI. So we have a prompt generator, a prompt lab that helps people develop prompts. We have them, they have the ability to validate. They can, we build take all the pleadings, and it'll build a context in that will help you generate prompts for litigation. That self-help type service that we were offering has led us to a second service, which is a lot of lawyers don't want to learn this right now. They've got day jobs. They don't have time to become prompt engineers. And if they do have time, they know that they are not as competent as somebody who's been doing it since the beginning. So we are now offering this AI as a service, at which point we no longer need the the token-based invoice, we can flat rate very easily because we know what the tokens cost. We can count what the complexity of the task, and we charge by either by project or by document if they need to in many cases. So I think we will be seeing token-based charges for a while. I want to give you a quick distinction here on the billable hour. We provide services to law firms. We are a disbursement in costs in Canada. So
Right.
it's better for them to have itemized explanation of the fees in many cases, because when you look at the fee schedules in many of the courts, they're still hours based, right? The rules say you get this many hours per, and then it's just how much your lawyer's charging.
Yeah, yeah, and that was something that Stuart alluded to in terms of the systems that we have. I know that in the state of Victoria in Australia, value-based pricing is one of their preferred charging methods. You know, so you think, oh, this is a regulator actually going in a different direction there. Nina, can I come to you? What do you think are the jobs that you told us all about the jobs that can become automated, and we all still feel your pain about the Excel spreadsheets. But what are the jobs that where we really got to have a human on board all the time? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, that's pretty much a question about the future of work. I feel no jobs become obsolete, but people need to learn new skills. I use this sample from my clients. Remember, well, none of us remembers, but we've seen it in movies where newspapers, people had to actually set the letters properly and then have to go to print for it. But that changed. Nowadays, you just open up a browser and type in the website and you have your news. So you learn new skills and you adapt to the present situation. 20 years ago, when I got into document review, nobody wanted to do that job. It wasn't even a genre yet. It didn't even have the name of legal technology. It wasn't seen as a proper job. Now you have all sort of different jobs being created out of AI. We always look at the negative side and say, well, AI is going to replace us. No, AI is going to do the repetitive work, but the accountability is with that person. So I would rephrase the question actually, Sean, and say, no job is going to be obsolete, no job is going to be cut out, but jobs the way we knew it will probably be changed through the application of AI.
Yeah.
Because you still, as a human, you still have the accountability. Otherwise, I could set a 13-year-old from a junior high in front of a computer and say, okay, this is a ChatGPT, nothing fancy, just write me a contract. It's not going to work. You need the person with the knowledge, knowing, as Duncan mentioned properly, to know how to prompt it, how to use it and everything. And those are the skills we need to, yeah.
And the accountability issue that came to light quite recently in the UK, where a law firm had a matter where a junior lawyer was using AI. The AI was telling him, "Can you make sure you check this?" The junior lawyer didn't. It seems as though the associate didn't, the partner didn't, and we ended up with a situation where one of the judges who heard the case said, "You seem to have kind of abrogated your whole responsibility to AI here." Obviously, terrible for a client to hear that while they're in court having a case, but also terrible for a law firm brand.
Yeah.
Which all of a sudden that's happening. And Stuart, what kind of how are you trying to encourage the accountability piece in Nelson's, or make sure that people are checking?
Yeah.
Quote my old maths teacher, how are you showing your workings?
Well, I mean, that's clearly a challenge, and the case you're talking about was over the front pages of the Law Society Gazette last week, and I read it, and if I'm honest, part of me thought there, but for the grace of God, because one of the problems with AI, Jennifer Swallow talks a lot about this. I was reading a piece that she wrote this morning on the legal press, who's an expert in, much more expert in tech than I am, and I shared a panel with her. But And she articulated really well. And having used much more AI since I heard her talk on that panel in the year since, she's right. It makes us lazy. I think it does fundamentally make you lazy. And the temptation to switch your brain off is always there. Lawyers are always under pressure. It's a high pressure, high demand job. You have to work into very tight deadlines. And it's very easy for things clearly it's happening. It's happened again and again and again. Happened a lot in the USA, some in the UK, where these hallucinated cases appear in submissions and shortcuts are taken. I think that's disastrous for us because I worry about if clients get the sense that we're not applying our brain, then what are we left really selling? You know, if we're saying to clients it's really the AI doing it all, then why do they need us? So I think as a profession, we've got to take care in that. Yeah, I mean, I think you try and set the communication and the supervision and the channels of communication out as clearly as you can. I say we're at an early stage, so there are going to be lessons to be learned. You've clearly got to develop a framework, and I've read lots of interesting pieces around the fact that this isn't going to take junior very much as Nina was saying. It's not that junior lawyers will lose their job with AI, but the nature of the role will change. You're going to need people to check all the content that's created rather than probably create the first draft of content. That job's probably going to go, but someone's got to go and check all those cases and fish it all out and do that bit and make sure it all stacks up. So yes, we try and communicate, have strong supervision. I think it's in the culture of the firm, but yeah, it's the kind of thing that keeps me up at night because it's like a lot of these things. You're as strong as your weakest link, aren't you? In a moment of pressure, people are capable of taking a shortcut, and that case showed the dangers for law firms and their brand. I agree.
Yeah, and Duncan, you know, you're running obviously a very sophisticated AI-enabled law firm. How do you think training has got to change for lawyers going forward, young lawyers going forward? Because it's not going to be Latin maxims and looking things up in books, I don't think.
Right. Well, I was thinking while Stuart was talking, we need, that we're going to change the role of the junior lawyers to be checking the AI. Where are they going to get those skills? Like, how will they know? We have been, as a profession, taking shortcuts and screwing up since the earliest days. We've always been under pressure. We've always taken risks. If you've got 10 litigation files on your desk, there are 3 of them you're hoping are going to settle and you're guessing which because you only have that many hours. We've always had to risk manage. I've seen dissenting decisions cited as the authority by senior lawyers all the time. They're tired at night, they're reading a Supreme Court decision and they get the wrong one. We've made mistakes, and there are bad lawyers who take shortcuts and are negligent. There are good lawyers who take shortcuts and save their clients money because they're good at it. So I'm not too worried I'm worried about the juniors, and I will go out on a bit of a limb here and say, I actually think people are going to lose jobs. I think we will have roles in law firms that don't exist anymore because of AI. I used to have a group of people who just did objective coding, date, title, type, to, from, on documents. And we'd say it's legal work. You need to be legally trained to understand that the concept is, I don't have them anymore, right? We could do that automatically. It costs pennies where it used to cost dollars per document to go through this. So I do think we are going to have a slimming of the rules, and we might have a focus on skills. I think law schools and the bar has a huge responsibility in ensuring that we maintain professional competence in the core areas for now. We'll run through a transition, I think. One of the questions we were talking about earlier, Sean, was, where lawyers were going to be. Do we need them because of their strategic thinking, their advocacy? Well, if you're putting your representations into an AI machine who's going to look at the 2 sides and render an opinion, advocacy becomes almost irrelevant. You're not persuading the computer because of the passionate tone in your document. It's going to go through facts. So advocacy may change as well when we're looking at automating outcomes. But for now, I'll leave this. I think there's still a huge moat around the human side. I think we have a big moat protecting the profession right now. And that's only because the data points aren't there to replace us. We don't know that the judge just came off a 2-week criminal trial and is going to be quite testy because he or she hasn't slept much in the last month. The AI won't know that. I might. I might be strategic in my questioning of a witness to try and annoy him before I ask the real question. The AI might not have that intuition. So I think there is a big moat. There's not enough information for AI to replace us, but we're gathering it quickly. That information is being gathered quickly. And every time we type into ChatGPT or use Harvey or any one of these that's learning from us, we're giving it more information. So I think that there is going to be a big shift. And I do see AI replacing larger and larger components of what we do. Not everything, but pieces of it.
Yeah. It was an interesting case that I think came out yesterday, Garfield AI, which is a litigation debt recovery package, AI-enabled law firm. And it won its first case with a 3-hour hearing. And I thought, well, this is interesting. How did that happen then? And then in the blurb that I've since read, it was a nod to the barrister who represented the client at the hearing. So I think there will be, while you need advocates, there will be elements of advocacy required. But apparently it was AI that had done the grunt work from bringing the claim, dealing with the defense and counterclaim, and putting everything together. But the barrister did have some involvement.
I know you need to move on. Duncan makes an interesting point there, doesn't he? I mean, underneath that then is the whole philosophical question around the kind of society we're looking to create and build. Because as Duncan says, the AI technology to consider alternative positions and find an answer is there. And governments will have to wrestle with, like justice systems will have to wrestle with how important is it to have a human make a decision and where and how much we reduce it, because that becomes big game changers if the whole way in which we make decisions and so on shifts and, to be seen.
And what do we think that, obviously we've identified some of the challenges that face law firms going forward. We've talked about training. That obviously we often talk about the pyramid structure, and then I've heard about, we're looking at a diamond formation and an hourglass structure, a cylinder, a rocket. You'll be delighted, dear listener, today. We're not going to go into any of those, other than the fact that it all seems to suggest your business model might have to think about changing. And obviously, if you are going to be doing some kind of change in an AI-enabled way, and if that's going to be meaningful, and this is really one for Nina and Duncan, what state do you think generally law firms' data is in to enable them to take the best use and take advantage of AI? Is it awful, or are you finding that law firms are now actually realizing they might be sitting on some information that is very useful for them? Nina, can I come to you?
I think it's okay to use AI. It's the same question as if we had asked 50 years ago, is it okay to use a computer or not? Absolutely use it. But again, as mentioned before, use it with caution. Don't trust it 100%, because otherwise, I know which law firm you were referring to, where you said, the junior lawyer decided something, the counsel, the senior partner, and it continued. Make sure you are aware of the fact that you are, at the end of the day, you are the human on that case. AI is never going to be as smart as you are. You need to take the accountability. It's fine to use AI. Otherwise, why are we even using Google? We should be going into libraries using encyclopedias. We can't have those double standards. If it gives you a draft version of something, gives you ideas, build on those ideas after doing your research, after using your own brain.
And Duncan, presumably you're processing law firms' clients' data for the litigation purposes. So that, I imagine, that comes in all shapes and sizes and carrier bags or whatever.
Yeah, it's an almost indescribable mess. Pre-COVID, we were getting close to information governance policies and practices, organizing institutional content. And I'll include law firms in this, pre-COVID. we had spent a long time, the most boring period of technology change pre-COVID, right? For 10 years, we used Microsoft Office, right? The cloud was just coming in. COVID hits, everybody goes home. All of a sudden, cloud's acceptable. It went from, oh, I don't know if I can put this into the cloud, to we need this right now. We went to gray market IT. People went and picked up apps wherever they want. Instant messaging picked up, video calls and recordings increased. And all of the information was kept on local machines, local laptops in people's homes, on removable media and email. So email became quickly the largest document management system in the world, and the most organized, by the way, more than most others. So we're dealing with that now. AI is the next thing. I think everybody's hoping AI is going to organize their content. It may well be able to do a better job and for less money than you currently can. That's the kind of services we provide, organizing it. But it's a bit of a mess. I think from a precedence perspective, in controlled environments, your lawyers know where the good stuff is. Everybody, you might have a great document, a knowledge management system. Yeah, well, everybody's copied the ones they really like to their local drives, leverage them, get the material in, and then validate outputs to make sure you're getting it. There are content management systems that can help you sort of crowdsource value by checking what people are using and referring to internally. But I think right now everyone's probably still in the post-COVID information mess.
Right. I've got one eye on the clock. We've got about 3 minutes to go. I want to ask you a final question. To start with you, Stuart. What is the one decision a managing partner, general counsel, somebody listening to this event, what's the one thing that they should be thinking about doing in the next 90 days?
That's a good question. Well, I'm speaking to those that run or involved in managing law firms, but yeah, ignoring AI isn't an option. So we've got to engage with it. It's very much my view. I've got to learn the lessons, become responsible with it. Pick an area where you're still billing by the hour, where you just don't need to be. Pick some of the easy fruit and replace it with a different pricing model, and learn the lessons, trial and error, and start learning now. That's what my advice would be.
Lovely. Nina. Next 90 days, what should be people
Certainly. Well, I agree with Stuart. I don't want to repeat everything he just said, but I would generally say if you don't know anything about AI, contact people like us who can give you information, who can handhold you a little bit. If you're already in AI and everything and have the knowledge, think of your billing, think how ethical you can be without losing your margins. And just go with the flow, just to be excited that there are changes and that we are experiencing them. I think we are living at the best times. So for the next 30 days, enjoy that you're part of that development, of that journey.
Okay, great. And Duncan, to you, same question.
Same question. My answer is listen to your clients. They come in the door and they get a bill and they say, can't you use AI for that? Identify the opportunities with the clients. Some clients obviously have no interest in the risks associated with automating in some way, whether it's AI or not. And others are there for the journey. Find the ones who are really going to support you in it and work with them. I think this is we're in a period of massive change. So don't lock yourself into anything now, but get in there and work with the people who are supportive of your journey.
Great. And really, I picking up on your point, Duncan, absolutely, it's a change management project. It is not an email, as from Monday, can we all start using AI? It is a change management project. And I stress that, lawyers don't like change. We're naturally conservative, we're risk averse, we pay attention to detail. And quite often we think that change is something that should happen to people around us, not necessarily to us ourselves. But it is a change management. But also, taking Nina's point, I think it's fantastically exciting. I really do. And I think, depending on where you might be in the food chain of the legal profession, your opinion might alter. I've got one question that I would like to put to you, or hopefully it's still there, and that is, it really picks up from one of the questions that we had earlier on. And this from Santhi, who said, should junior lawyers in the first 1 to 3 years of practice have access to AI tools like Harvey? Nina, is yes or no?
Yes, I would say junior lawyers should always have access to AI tools.
Yeah.
Again, with the caveat, use your brain, use the
Yeah.
tool to practice and learn things, but you are the accountable person for it.
Yeah. Stuart Duncan, any different view to that?
Absolutely. I mean, I began work without a computer. I began work before we had computers on desk. I mean, yes, absolutely. We've got to learn. The only way we're going to learn is to use it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I just think that it's not the tech that's the problem, it's the guardrails, the supervision, etc., etc., etc. That's what we've got to make sure we're going to do. Well, look, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. I'm sorry I haven't been able to deal with all of the questions that have come through. But I'd like to thank UX for this, putting together this legal tech talk for us. Thank you to Net Law Media for the production. The production's been really good behind the scenes. They've really been knowing their stuff. I'd like to thank our panel for giving up their time to participate. And also I'd like to thank you, the listeners, for joining us. Thank you very much. Please subscribe to these events. There's more, I'm sure, scheduled in the Net Law Media stable coming to you. But tell your friends. Hope you've enjoyed it, and I know that a recording of this will become available in the usual way. But everybody else, thank you very much for joining us, and look forward to seeing you again soon.